Hi, my name is Jeff Morgan. I'm from Dallas, Texas. This is Sunday, October the 1st, 2017. And I am going to read a quick letter here. It was the order from Justice Jack James, or who I otherwise refer to as Injustice Jack James. Justice of the Peace Jack James, Precinct One, Rockwall. He gave this order. It was issued on the 23rd day of June, 2017. On June 23rd, well, this is very interesting. I want to spend a few moments talking about an order from the defendant's motion to dismiss with prejudice. An order issued by Judge Jack James, Justice of the Peace Jack James, Rockwall, Texas, Precinct 1. Justice Jack James, who actually, as I read this just a moment ago, I realized he lied to me. He lied to me in the court. And now I'm furious at this point. So here is the order on the defendant's motion to dismiss with prejudice. So I went to his court. I filed a small claims court. I did a small claims case against my ex-wife for lying in front of a judge and costing me an additional $3,766. That was a conservative estimate. Judge Jack James knew I was alleging perjury. Actually, I said perjury in the courtroom in front of him, and he corrected me by saying it's alleged perjury, alleged perjury. So I used the terms that he did, alleged perjury. And this was on Friday, June the 23rd, 2017, that we appeared before him. Now, he told me in front of the court, he told me in front of everybody, he would be looking at it over the weekend. And interestingly enough, this letter is signed the exact same day that we appeared before him. Judge Jack James, you lied to me. And I'm sorry, I hope we have an audio recording of it. I hope we have a video recording of it. You said one thing, you did the opposite. This is the case, Jeffrey S. Morgan, the plaintiff, versus Deborah A. Wygant, defendant. And this was in Justice Court, Precinct Number 1 of Rockwall County, Texas, in front of Injustice of the Peace, Jack James. The order on the defendant's motion to dismiss with prejudice. On June 23rd, 2017, came the aforementioned parties to hear the defendant's motion to dismiss, filed on June 8th, 2017. Evidently, after we received our date, I had waited about 7 months. I first filed in November of 2016, the end of November, and I had to wait for a hearing until July 2017. It was going to be July 18th, 2017. I had to wait that long to get a hearing. And because, they're just so busy over there. They just have so much to do in the courts over there. Anyway, I talked with, I believe it was Kim Raulston, who I believe is the chief administrative or senior chief administrative person or something for Judge Jack James, Injustice Judge Jack James. And she said, because we'll call her and say, what's happening? Is this case going to go forward? Are we going to have a case? Are we just, what's happening with this? I could not believe it was taking me. After filing in November, I would finally get a case. I would finally get a hearing in July, which was about, 8.5 months later? Well, in May, she said, we have a date. And I said, okay, fine. The only time I cannot be there is there's 1 week in July. I'm going to be out of the area. And she scheduled around that. Well, after the letters came out, lo and behold, my ex-wife, Deborah A. Wygant, received it, and she filed a motion to dismiss. Now, her original motion to dismiss, well, it wasn't even a motion to dismiss, but when she wrote to the court, she wrote in response to her answer to my small claims suit against her, she said, I respectfully ask that this case be dismissed as frivolous and without merit. Now, everybody knows, including Injustice Jack James, that the whole case was based upon perjury, or as he would say, alleged perjury. Alleged perjury, Justice Jack James. When we came before him on June the 23rd, the same day that he issued this letter, after he said he would research it over the weekend, you lied to me, Judge Jack James. After he did this, unless somehow, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one that I showed right here. This one right here, that's his date. He looks like he went right out of the courtroom and just signed this thing, because this was ordered and issued. Signed June the 23rd, 2017. On June 23rd, 2017, came the aforementioned parties to hear the defendant's motion to dismiss, filed on June 8th, 2017. It was amazing that I had to wait 8.5 months to get a court date, and then my ex-wife could go in there, file this thing on June the 8th, and by June the 23rd, she had a court date. Amazing how all of a sudden, we just have all of this extra free time available to us. We're not so busy anymore. All the parties were sworn in. Testimony and evidence were presented. Well, this is very interesting as well. A little piece of evidence was presented because Judge Jack James, in Justice Judge Jack James, Precinct 1 of Rockwall, at the beginning said this is on the order of the motion to dismiss. No evidence would be presented. That's what he said in the court. So now I did get to give one piece of paper, maybe it was one or two pieces of paper. It didn't have a lot to do. I don't even remember what it was. It was kind of inconsequential. But the whole issue, and from what I thought, I said, what am I supposed to be bringing into this case? Because my ex-wife said, I spoke the truth in the belief, and that she did not speak the truth. Even the judge that she was in front of acknowledged or seemed to recognize that there was inconsistency between her testimony and the evidence submitted in the exhibits. I spoke the truth in the belief that the legal system would protect me as a witness against vindictive actions. Vindictive actions? Really? She lied. She came down there. She claimed to be a witness to something that she wasn't even a participant at. She knew she was lying. But of course, in April 17th, 2013, she had threatened to take legal action against me. I hadn't spoken to her for about 5.5 months at that point. 5.5, almost 6 months. And she wrote a letter to her parents that she copied me on, stating how she would, I thought I had it here. I guess I don't right now. How that she would, in fact, I will go get it. Okay, I just went inside to get this response. I could not believe when I realized that actually he signed this letter the same day we had the trial, after he said he would be researching it over the weekend. And the reason he was going to research it in part was because Ms. Wygant claimed that he had no jurisdiction. Whereas in Texas, he actually did have jurisdiction, and I filed within the statute of limitations. He asked her for the statute that would show that he had no jurisdiction. Of course, she could not produce one, so Judge Jack James was going to research it over the weekend. He did not do so. This was going to be a calm video at the beginning. I'm a little bit hot right now. In December 2016, Ms. Wygant wrote that the case was frivolous and without merit. So I tried to respond in front of Jack James to what she had written. During her testimony before Judge Regina Moore down in Dallas, Ms. Wygant tried to portray me as a violent person and as herself as having always tried to keep the family together. She denied ever having any affairs, even when confronted with photographic evidence that at the very least suggested very inappropriate behavior, which she then confessed to. I mentioned her affair to Judge Jack James, but he didn't think that was relevant. He didn't want to hear any more about it. So right there, that is one single point that you could say, she said this, the evidence said that, she was lying. Well, of course, everybody lies about sex these days, right? We learned that from the Clintons. And evidently, Judge Jack James buys into that argument. Thank you, Injustice, Judge Jack James. Ms. Wygant also testified before Judge Moore that my grandchildren were not safe around me. In her testimony, she stated that I might kill someone. I did not get to address that charge before Judge Jack James. These are some of the things, and there were more, that my ex-wife, Deborah Wygant, asserted against me, and I do have the transcripts from the court. I was innocent of all charges. The judge found absolutely no evidence for any of the allegations made against me. But that's okay. Ms. Wygant got up there, and she was looking as if she was trying to get an Academy Award for lying. And she did, except that she's not a very good liar. She did the performance, and then when confronted with some evidence, she started to fall apart. And under cross-examination, her original testimony could not stand. But of course, there was no type of cross-examination because Injustice Judge Jack James decided that he was not going to hear any evidence. He was just going to rule on the order to dismiss. At one point during the judge's question, I stated, this was Judge Jack James, Injustice Judge Jack James. At one point during his questioning to me, I said that Ms. Wygant and the other two witnesses had committed perjury. Judge James appeared to smirk and asked me if I was the only one who was telling the truth. I had the transcripts in front of me. In fact, I offered to give him the transcripts to read. Judge Jack James said he would not read the transcripts. At which point I said, Your Honor, I've got pages 23 through 41. There's 18 pages here. You don't have to read the whole 300. This is the testimony from Ms. Wygant. And Judge Jack James would not look at the evidence. It's interesting because Judge Jack James, Injustice Judge Jack James, knew what I was alleging. I was alleging perjury, and I had the transcripts done by a certified court transcriber that came from the court, and he dismissed them. He suppressed them. He attacked me. He smirked at me like, oh, you're the only one who tells the truth? Really? Sorry, Judge Jack James, I'm telling the truth right now, and you know it. Then, of course, Judge Jack James, he's going to be a wise person right now. He asked me why I was suing Miss Wygant instead of my daughter, Stephanie, and he stated that I should be suing Stephanie. I'm sorry, Judge Jack James, it's my decision who I sue and who I don't sue. I didn't want to sue anybody. The only reason I did this was because there was the issue of the truth. I've been accused of lying about this whole thing. The judge, Regina Moore in Dallas, knew that I wasn't lying. She based her hearing off of the fact that we were telling the truth. She would not even accept the closing statement from my attorney because it was so overwhelming that the witnesses for the other side were very inconsistent in their testimony. Had Miss Wygant gotten her way, I could have had a protective order put upon me. I could have lost my job. I could have had a number of things happen to me because that would have been the prelude to a felony trial. That's what they wanted to do. April the 17th, 2013, this is what Miss Wygant wrote in an email that she copied me on. She was writing the email to her parents. Her parents had given her between $40,000 and $45,000, somewhere in that range. I have the cashier's check still for a divorce that they did not believe in, but they were going to make 3.5% interest. Yvonne Lee, her mother, said, you know what, this is good for our retirement. It's going to be good for the retirement because at the time they were not getting any interest in the bank. So I was not supposed to find out about it. Unfortunately, Miss Wygant didn't keep it a secret, let me know, and that's when I raked them over the coals over this. So here's what she's written, because 17 days after the divorce, she had her friend, a pastor at the time, from First Baptist Church down in Huntsville, Texas, who is no longer a pastor down there. Either he resigned, I was told, or I got him fired. My former mother-in-law says I got him fired, even though I wrote a single piece of correspondence directly to him without anybody being copied on that. I don't know whether the staff saw it or what, but he is no longer a pastor. And 10 months later, he and my ex-wife were married, 10 months after the divorce. And there was a lot of lying that took place there. But here is what Miss Wygant's peaceful, tranquil, non-vindictive email said. We, meaning she and her fiance, which was the pastor of First Baptist Church in Huntsville, Texas, we have considered leveling the full force of law against Jeff, in which he would do time in state prison. I hadn't even written to her since November, I believe it was, of 2012. This is April 2013. I couldn't even write to her about our kids because she just wanted to, every time that I would try to say something about the kids and the impact the divorce was having on the kids, she would just deny everything. She's living in fantasy land, la-la land, with her new husband, well, fiance at the time, former pastor of First Baptist Church in Huntsville, Texas. My attorney, as well as the police, have informed me that my pursuing such a course of action would not bode well for his job in the government either. Even apart from the prison record, it would be one way to shut him down so we can all move on. Worth every cent of the couple of grand it would cost to file, I'll keep you apprised. This took place on April 17th, 2013. I had this as well to present before Injustice Judge Jack James, but he would not take any evidence because it was only on a rule to dismiss. So, and yet, in this Judge Jack James, I'm sorry, I'm accusing you of lying. I may be wrong, but this is what you said you were going to do, and you did not even keep your word to me. All parties were sworn in. Testimony and evidence were presented. As I said, most of the evidence was suppressed by you, Judge Jack James, because you said at the very beginning you were not going to look at any evidence. And when I gave you the transcript, you chose not to take it. And when I said, here's the part of Miss Wygant's testimony, you wouldn't even take that, even though it was 18 pages. You did not want to spend your weekend reading the transcript and discerning who said what and everything else. I gave you 18 pages, and you wouldn't take them. So don't tell me that the evidence was presented. It may have been presented, but it certainly wasn't looked at. It certainly wasn't accepted on your part, and definitely was not read on your part. The court, having heard testimony, what testimony did you hear? You were acting like a prosecuting attorney toward me. When you asked her simple questions, she didn't even give you proper responses. Miss Wygant, what? Do you have a statute? Miss Wygant, do you have a statute? Yes, I may be overplaying it right now, but she could produce no statute to say that he had no jurisdiction. That was her claim at this point. And then she said, and even if I had committed perjury, it's irrelevant because I'm not a party to the lawsuit. Judge Injustice Jack James could have said, well, Miss Wygant, did you commit perjury? No, he chose not to do that. Instead, he chose to, I guess, go back to his quarters and sign this letter, issue it on June the 23rd, after he stated he would have to take the weekend to research it. Thank you, Judge Jack James. The court, having heard testimony, having reviewed documents, and which document did you review? Which document did you review, Jack James? I would like you to know. Make it public, because I have filed a complaint against you with the State Commission for Judicial Conduct. Tell me, tell them, tell everybody which documents you reviewed. You certainly did not review the evidence that I had in front of me that you chose not to accept. And Constable John Benedetto can also testify to this fact. He was there. He took that one piece of whatever it was that I gave to you, and I don't even remember what it was. It was that inconsequential. But you wouldn't even pick up the transcript from me, nor let me present any of the other evidence, because it was only on whether it should be dismissed or not. You even tried to say, well, I'm responsible for my own attorney fees, and then as you started to read what I said, you said, oh, it's more than just attorney fees, isn't it? He's putting in this and that and everything else. Isn't that true, Judge Jack James? The court finds there is no valid civil cause of action. Well. And Judge Jack James, could you please tell everybody what your legal background is? Do you have any legal background? I believe you were a fire chief or something like that. I don't remember exactly. And you know what the sickening thing is, Judge Jack James? I probably voted for you when I lived out there, because you are a Republican judge. I know you go to the Rockwall GOP breakfast, because I saw you there afterwards. And after you recognized me, I saw your face. I saw how you turned red, and I saw how you walked out. You didn't recognize me, but I saw you announce yourself, Judge Jack James, having a question for Sheriff Harold Everson. Judge Jack James, there's a question here. And I said something that you knew who I was. I didn't even announce my name intentionally, but you knew who I was. And I saw you turn red, and then I saw you walk. I didn't see you walk up, but when I looked back over there a couple of minutes later, you were gone. I'm sorry, but Judge Jack James, injustice, Judge Jack James, I think you need to be voted out. I think the honorable thing for you to do, Judge Jack James, would be to resign, would be to actually write a letter that stated that you were wrong, to tell this to the people. I'm asking the State Commission for Judicial Conduct to fully reprimand you and to remove you from your position. I want every single action that they can do against you to be taken against you. And the people of Rockwall, if you hear this, this is who Judge Jack James is. I don't know if he's that way all the time. I know in this case, he was that way. If there was audio and video recording, I asked the court to preserve it. I asked that it not be destroyed, because, I'm sure had I done something crazy, they would have had this wonderful audio and video about me just going nuts or something like that, which I did not do. So I guess there's no reason to have the audio and video right now. I don't know if they record or not. I think that they do, but I do not know. It's pure... it's a guess either way on my part. But I would like that preserved. I would like that to be shown. I would like the evidence to be considered. I would like to have the opportunity to accuse Judge Jack James, and then allow him the ability to not present evidence that he might say, well, this were the mitigating factors. There were no mitigating factors, Judge Jack James. You were choosing a side ahead of time. You were choosing a winner and a loser. In fact, everything that, from my perspective, you had already chosen a winner and a loser, which is why I had to respond quickly to every question that you asked of me. And on the other hand, you were throwing softballs to Miss Wygant. So you were not an impartial judge in the least, in my opinion. By the way, Judge Jack James, the reason that this whole court thing took place down in Texas, in Dallas, is because my daughter had filed a false police report with the police and with the constable down there was trying to get a protective order against me and convict me of a felony for something I did not do. And because a beloved agency of ours, the Children's Protective Services, would not respond to my request to tell my daughter I had nothing to do with it, that's why I was down in court. And by the way, Injustice Jack James, I was able to go to a senator, Senator Van Taylor, who's going to be running for Congress. I'll support him 100%. He actually went to CPS to find out what the truth was. And finally, on October the 24th, 2016, approximately 18 months after this whole alleged incident took place, this is a letter supposedly from Commissioner H.L. Whitman Jr., Hank Whitman Jr. of the Children's Protective Services. I spoke with him in person July 22nd, I believe it was, or July 12th, 2016, when I testified in front of the committee regarding Children's Protective Services. He told me he would get back to me. The only reason he got back to me, and this wasn't even from him, But this is a BS letter, if I've ever seen one. It's a cover my behind letter. That's all that this is right here. And that's because I had a senator with a backbone who was able to fight. And there are some good senators here who will do this. Dear Mr. Morgan, thank you for contacting the office of Senator Van Taylor. This is coming from not Senator Van Taylor. I have nothing but highest regard for Senator Van Taylor in his office, as well as Senator Don Huffines, as well as Senator Bob Hall. I can list a whole bunch of people that I have nothing but highest regard for their integrity. Judge Jack James, you don't make that list. Thank you for contacting the office of Senator Van Taylor regarding your involvement with the Department of Family and Protective Services, DFPS. Our office is separate from each DFPS program, including Child Protective Services, Adult Protective Service, Child Care Licensing, and statewide intake, and as a result, can handle case-specific complaints regarding relating to those programs in a neutral manner. They wouldn't do this 18 months earlier, but only because a senator got involved and his staff, and they were able to put some pressure on. Finally, they came forth with this. In reviewing DFPS records, I found that you have never made a report to statewide intake. The reason Ms. Wygant went down to Dallas to lie in front of the judge in front of me was because I had been falsely accused of making a report to Children's Protective Services. And Children's Protective Services chose not to let my daughter and other people know because they had to protect the anonymity of the hospital. And by the way, Children's Protective Services, you know I'm not your fan either. To the statewide intake, the division within DFPS responsible for accepting reports of suspected abuse and neglect of children, or abuse, neglect, and exploitation of the elderly or adults with a disability. It's amazing, Children's Protective Services, how you can exploit families, isn't it? This is what you do. You investigate these things. Investigate yourself. Thank you for bringing your concern to the attention of Senator Van Taylor and for the opportunity to share this information with you. Wow. So they wrote, this is the way that they're going to exonerate me after they cost me $20,000 in 2 trials, allow me to be falsely accused, allowing me to not have the ability to see my grandchildren now for almost 2.5 years, enabling my ex-wife, who made a threat on April 17th, 2013, to throw me in prison, to see that come to pass, enabling a former mother-in-law to give false email testimony as well in front of the judge. In reviewing DFPS records, I found that you have never made a report to statewide intake. Wow, that's it. That's it. So if you wonder why I am also against Children's Protective Services, it's because you could have done this 18 months earlier, and the integrity that you should be showing would be if you cause a problem, you seek to minimize it. And I'm sorry, but Commissioner Hank Whitman, I don't think you have fulfilled the promise that you made to me on that day when we shook hands and I looked you in the eye after I was done testifying, and you shook my hand as well and looked me in the eye. We looked each other in the eye, both military people, both people of honor, and yet you did not do, in my opinion, what you said you were going to do. So, Injustice Jack James, I was falsely charged with something I didn't do. Judge Regina Moore completely found me innocent, even though Miss Wygant committed perjury. Oh, I'm sorry, Judge Jack James, alleged perjury, for your sake. And of course, you wouldn't even look at the transcript, which would, I don't know which of my allegations were based, and yet you said you would take a look at the case over the weekend, and the same day that we went before you, you ordered and issued this letter on the defendant's motion to dismiss with prejudice. And you lied by saying that evidence was presented. Yeah, a little, okay, maybe that wasn't a complete lie, but it certainly wasn't the full truth, was it, Injustice Jack James? The court having heard testimony. You didn't hear testimony. At the very beginning, you said you would not hear evidence regarding the case. It was only on the order to dismiss, and then you interrogated me like a prosecuting attorney. I was really calm when this thing started, when I realized that in the letter, which I did not realize earlier, that he had lied to me. I I never caught that he made the order and the issue the same date after he said in court he would be researching it over the weekend. In fact, I wrote to him on Monday, I think it was on Monday morning, and said, or Sunday, and I've got that email too. I wrote to Kim Raulston. I said, I can't find his email. Would you please pass this on to Judge Jack James? Evidently, it was too late. So again, my complaint is filed with the State Commission for Judicial Conduct. It is against Judge Jack James, Precinct 1, Rockwall, and I am not going to be quiet about this. Thank you.